Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? We're going to get started. If everyone can take their seats, we're going to get started. I'm going to ask the candidates to come up and take their seats. You'll see your name on the chairs. We're going to have our candidates come up and get started in a few minutes. It's in alphabetical order, so have fun at that. And you're the first. What a surprise. You work down.
Are we sitting together again? You right here. Yeah, you right here.
Thank you. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Thank you, everyone. Get seated.
Yes. All right, let's do it. Oh, we have assigned seats.
And have Reverend Boyer come to the front. I've lost my pastor. That's fine.
How do you know? Right here. How you doing? I know. Sorry. It was so many people.
Hello, Brad.
I got a video of y'all though. I got a video.
Oh, okay.
I did a.
Oh, we missed Brad.
We can just take this for the rest of the thing.
We need one more chair.
Yeah, we're rest of the chair.
Everybody move down. Alphabetical order.
Amen. This is the day the Lord has made. Amen. So before I give my 2 cents, can we give it up for the great pastor of this church as he comes and welcomes us, the great Reverend Dr. Dante Quick.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and good morning to all of our candidates. Good morning. Please, I'm not going to take long. Let me give honor to the great Reverend Boyer, who I think has shown himself to be a modern-day prophet. His commitment to the least and left behind is unquestioned. And often we compromise ourselves because we compromise our personal integrity. So I just want to honor him, and I want to welcome all of you to First Baptist. First Baptist Church has been in this community for generations. We started in a gas station, 19 families. And we started First Baptist when people of color were not able to get mortgages. They were not initially able to get a mortgage for this building. And so they mortgaged their own homes. And they take from their own savings. And from that gas station, we are here today. And I just wanted to welcome you with that history to let you know exactly why I stand here and what I represent. My number one job is to never allow those 19 families and their sacrifice to be pimped by anyone. That my commitment is that the things that made them start this institution, that block them, be eradicated. That no one and nothing will ever compromise their sacrifice. So we've come from 19 families to more than 6,000 members. We have 10 to 15,000 people a week who engage First Baptist online. And we believe that as an institution, there is no such thing as emancipation without education. And so we welcome you all here today because as we stream this to all of our members, we want them to see who is interested in representing their interest rather than interested in being a representative, because they're two different things. So I hope today we deal with the coming displacement that AI will bring. That displacement will hurt, first, Black and brown communities. I hope we deal with the fact that ICE is a modern-day Klan institution aimed at Black people. That we're not interested in the rhetoric, but what are we going to do to support the governor in the state of New Jersey in blunting their force? And lastly, I hope we deal with the fact that our state and federal tax structures are aimed against the poor, and that we have concrete ideas. I hope we deal with the fact that this idea of the middle class does not exist. And I hope we don't have candidates who say, I'm here for the middle class, because that's a lie. There's no such thing as the middle class. Because if it was, I might be in that group. But to syndicate to college, to pay for gas, how many of us are one paycheck away from being kicked out of our homes? So I hope we have an honest, upfront conversation. I hope after tonight we help whittle this group down so that we don't have all of these candidates running. And I hope that money does not decide who that person is. So welcome to First Baptist. Thank you for being here. I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Hi there, Samantha Gordon. Good to see you all. Just a couple of housekeeping items. So this is live streamed on First Baptist's Facebook page, so please pull that and we'll get the views there. Also, we have our candidates, and a lot of you have information and materials they want to share with you and meet you. It'll be in the lobby. If Asada could stand up, all those who have materials, you'll see Asada in the back. You will bring those right before the event ends, okay? All right, I'll pass it back over to Reverend Boyer. Thank you.
Amen. Can we give it up for Pastor Quick again? He is somebody's preacher. He is somebody's preacher. And you can see why we wanted to have this discussion here. So we're grateful to gather today in a sacred space that has never separated faith from justice, and worship from witness, or belief from responsibility. The scripture reminds us in Proverbs 31, 8 through 9, to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Today, this forum is one way we live that calling, not with noise, but with clarity, not with apathy, but with participation. So first, we give thanks to the partners who helped make this moment possible, beginning with the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. Can we give it up? Whose leadership in advancing racial, economic justice, and civic participation continue to shape us. We also thank the New Jersey Black Empowerment Coalition, the New Jersey Black Issues Convention, the New Brunswick Somerset Area NAACP for their work in helping to put this together. And again, let's offer deep gratitude to First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens and Pastor Quick. I also want to take just a quick moment of personal privilege to thank the awesome team of Salvation and Social Justice, amen, our staff and team that does this faith-rooted civic engagement work every day. Family, let us be real clear about why today matters. At a moment when Black democracy is under direct and deliberate attack, when voting rights are threatened, history distorted, and civic participation is treated as something to be feared, we gather here as a declaration that Black participation should not be taken lightly. It's necessary. And the Black church has always been a guardian of conscience in this nation. That is precisely why a federal candidates forum is critical, and particularly in this district, because we all should take a moment to celebrate the sister who currently represents this district, a major giant of Black faith and social conscience, the people's champion, Bonnie Watson Coleman. Amen? She deserves it. She deserves it. Amen. But this federal discussion is particularly critical because Congress decides whether voting rights are protected or preempted, whether maternal health crises are addressed or ignored, whether communities receive investment or abandonment, and whether justice is advanced or delayed. And federal leadership sets the floor for dignity in this country. And the people most impacted by federal policy deserve clear answers from those seeking office. We saw what happens when communities are gathered and organized. We saw the power and impact in the last gubernatorial election when sustained Black turnout helped shape the direction of this state. And we are continuing to build on that momentum through the New Jersey statewide Black agenda developed in Black churches across New Jersey, where everyday people have named their priorities and made clear what leadership must be accountable to. So today, we welcome these candidates, but we also affirm the voters. This is a place and a space of respect. It is a space of order, but above all, it's a space of truth. Now, it is my distinct honor to introduce our forum moderator. We purposely reached outside the district So wouldn't be no bias. She does not have a candidate in this race. The Reverend Dr. Bernadette Glover is the senior pastor of St. Paul Baptist Church in Montclair, New Jersey, where she has served since 2016 after joining the congregation as interim pastor in 2013. A respected, powerful preacher, an educator and public theologian. And she previously served as the executive pastor at Cathedral International in Perth Amboy and as an associate professor of preaching and worship at New Brunswick Theological Seminary. Y'all, she is somebody.
Yes.
And she holds a whole lot of weight and Holy Ghost power in her hands. She holds a doctorate of ministry from United Theological Seminary. We'll forgive her for that. But she was under there where she was a Jeremiah Wright and Cornell West Fellow. Reverend Dr. Glover is also the author of Whispers Overheard and is widely known for her ability to connect faith to the pressing moral and social issues of our time. Sisters and brothers, would you all greet and welcome with me the great, the one and only, the Reverend Dr. Bernadette Glover, our moderator.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. That doesn't sound like you're running for anything. I say good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well, we welcome you, everyone here, to the Candidate Primary Forum for Congressional District 12. This event is designed to create a neutral space for candidates to present their views and respond to community questions. It is our aim to continue empowering voters to make informed choices and fostering civil dialogue across political lines. That said, the congressional candidates were invited to attend this forum regardless of political affiliation. Now, I'm going to introduce each candidate, and then we're going to jump right into the questions to get through as many as possible. For the main portion of this event, each candidate will respond to the same set of questions. These questions have been either pre-submitted by event registrants who reside in the district, submitted by students from Princeton or the College of New Jersey, or by co-sponsoring organizations. Now, these questions have not been shared with the candidates at all. For the first question, we will allow candidates 1 minute and 30 seconds. That means you gotta hit it and quit it. All right? Okay. We will allow candidates 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer the question. That'll get you warmed up. The following questions following that, each candidate will have only 1 minute. So you gotta be immortal without being eternal. Okay. I'm just telling you, you gotta be immortal. We have a designated timer to track here, the time. Now she will hold up a yellow card indicating that you have 15 seconds to finish your remarks. There will be a red card raised when time is up. And when it's up, you're out on that question. There may be a countdown clock available for the candidate's view, for you to view. Now, with such a high volume of candidates, we want to get through as many questions as possible. That said, we simply could not allot time for you to engage in these rebuttals. You'll have to do your rebuts after everything's over, okay? Now, that's how we're gonna run, okay? That would be good. Now also, a note to the audience, as your listening audience, you may hear some things said that you absolutely love. I'm glad that you'll love it, but no applauding, because we can't get through all that applauding and everything else, okay? That's how we have to roll, all right? Okay, so allow me to briefly introduce the candidates. Matt Adams, Sue Altman, Brad Cohen, Elijah Dixon. I need a picture of your face. I'm looking through a plan. Okay. Adrian Hamuy. Adrian. Adam?
Adam Hamill.
Adrian, I'm sorry. Thank you. There's nothing like correction. Thank you. Appreciate that. Kyle Little. Adrian Mapp. Okay, we have Andres Jeanette. Perfect. Okay. Verlina Reynolds Jackson. Chanel Robinson. Squire Servance. And Jay Vine Gunker. Sam Wang. Yeah, thank you. That's great. All right, very good. Now, there was a sheet with everyone's picture on it, and there's a scan code, and so you can check out, those of us in the audience, that's right, thank you, sir. You can check out everything you need to know about folks individually. It's all on the sheet, so we won't read bios and all that kind of stuff, okay? All right. First question here, okay? New Jersey has a staggering $600,000 wealth gap between white and black Latina families, one of the worst in the country, making it increasingly hard for black residents to meet rising costs of living, like housing and health care. So how do you plan to support legislative efforts that expand affordable housing while also addressing persistent disparities in health insurance, affordability, and overall cost of living? Let's start here. Go for it.
Thank you for that great question, and thank you all for attending and for putting this together. First of all, let me say, and I feel comfortable saying that this in this space, I'm a man of faith. I believe in God, and I believe in representing what He wants us to do through our daily decision making. And so in Congress, I will be contemplating and praying, hoping for and praying for the right decisions to be made. And in this instance, we have the power of the purse given to Congress through Article 1 of the Constitution. And I firmly believe in the Constitution and its power to give everyone opportunity to be successful and to find happiness. That power of the purse given through the Constitution allows Congress to tax as it sees fit, as it sees the way to make this country better. The tax code is awful right now. It is designed to favor the wealthy, and number one, I would change the tax code such that we could almost eliminate taxes for those of us who are in need of a break. I would also support a 529 plan for housing.
Can I go? All right. Hi,
Yes.
everybody. I'm Sue Altman. It is a pleasure to be here. I am a longtime organizer and advocate for democracy and the economy, and these two things go hand in hand. I spent 7 years living in Camden City, and I saw firsthand, and it was outrageous, the way the Democratic Party and the Republican Party alike sucked Camden dry. went to insurance brokers, state money went to large corporations, and we are seeing this fight play out at the national level. New Jersey has suffered from centuries of segregation. It was a slave state. We don't talk about that in our schools. It has suffered from centuries of segregation and disinvestment in our urban communities and our communities of color, and that has to change. We see this in the way we distribute economic wealth in this country. When I get to Congress, I will fight like hell to hold accountable those billionaires who are taking every dime of our taxpayer money and using it to line their pockets, whether it's through ICE contracts and the GEO Group and private prisons, to privatizing our schools and privatizing our water system. Our society and our communities are not here for the benefit of the wealthy.
Watch your time.
Oh, I'm watching it. And every single day that we work hard and we use that sweat equity to line the pockets of billionaires, we are poorer by that. And I will go to Congress and I will fight like hell to change this nonsense. Thank you.
Everybody watch your time.
Yes,
When you're
well,
done,
first
you're
of all,
done.
thank you all for hosting this today, my friends and partners at the NAACP. I think the question was about wealth gap. And so the first thing that we need to do is recognize that there is one. We know that in this room, but I don't think they know that in Congress. So the first thing is to recognize that. As we then start to address that issue with the incredible wealth gap that already exists in this country under Trump and billionaires that have done incredibly well, it hurts people in the communities of color worse and far greater than anybody else. So how do we start? I know that Cory Booker decided and has been looking at the issue of baby bonds, which is part of the greater issue of reparations. I think we need to look at education and making sure that we provide opportunities for our kids to get a good education, whether that is in college or whether that is in vocational schools. We need to make both of those available and affordable. And we also need to make sure that we provide for housing, to be able to establish generational wealth for people, whether that is through low interest loans, no interest loans, down payment money. All of these things are things that the federal government is capable of doing. And finally, we have to merge this alphabet soup of departments and make sure that we have people acting in the interests of those of us who need the services and coordinate them in a way that gets the services to the people that need them the most, because many times they're there, we just don't know how to access them.
Good morning, everyone. Elijah Dixon again. And I come from primarily an organizer background. I'm a resident and organizer within the city of Trenton, where I've helped to develop alternative economic structures in the face of gentrification and displacement of my neighbors, creating cooperatives, helping to develop land trusts, novel types of economic systems to be able to fight back against corporate interests, corporate landlords that have been displacing us for generations. Nationally, I work for a community development financial institution where my sole responsibility is to help deploy capital, whether it's through grant subsidy, equity, or low interest loans into historically disinvested and underinvested communities. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I'm also an entrepreneur back in Trenton where, again, we're looking to preserve the social and cultural fabric of our communities. I had other remarks prepared, but since my good brother had mentioned Cory Booker, and then someone else also mentioned, perhaps who Altman had mentioned, it's a Democrat and Republican issue. Officials like Cory Booker smile in our faces respectfully, and then go in D.C. and vote against our interests. And I have to make it plain, and it's uncomfortable truth, but until, it was once said, why independence if the slaves of today are the tyrants of tomorrow? The same people who we are entrusting with their vote are going behind our backs and voting in favor of weapons, going in favor of the ICE contracts, to the military and prison industrial complex. So big money is the interest. I'm sorry, big money is the problem.
You're done.
I'm done right now, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here. My name is Adam Hamawi. I am a doctor and a veteran and a father. The QR code on most of the papers are wrong, so if you really want to find out about me, please go to the website that's listed there. And I have not been in politics for a long time, but I've been working with people for a long time, really all my life, and dealing with the results of the policies that are enacted by people in Congress. And working with people, I see the disadvantages that they have. And when we talk about the wealth gap didn't occur and appear overnight. It's a result of centuries of structured racism and policies that have been enacted in this country. As an immigrant, I came and I was working as a working class, grew up in a working class family, so I know the struggle that people go to, but I can only imagine what it feels like to be born into a disadvantaged family in a disadvantaged community. So we need to address this head on, and it's about time that as a country we address reparations, both at the local level and a national level. New Jersey used to be the slave state of the North. 8% of the people in New Jersey in the 1800s were slaves. So if we don't address that original cause and bring back monies into the community and address this at a national level, we are never going to catch up. There's much that we could do, and we could just start from there.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Andres Gianette. I'm part of the Green Party in New Jersey. I'm also part of Central Jersey Tenant Union. And I have worked with multiple organizations connecting people through these times of ICE raids everywhere and whatnot. What I can say for sure that we need to do as far as the affordability agenda is concerned, we need to realize that the donors that are funding this whole system are funding both parties. They're the real estate lobby, they're corporations that are involved in many different sectors, the war industry. It's easier for some reason in this country to tax middle and lower income people than it is to tax the billionaires and the high concentrations of wealth in this country. What we need to do is get some of that money, tax, go to the billionaires and go to the corporations, cut the military budget and bring that money home to invest it in housing, for affordable housing, for universal health care, for a purchase and forgive all student debt, and also to raise the minimum wage to $25 an hour. We have policies in place, as far as my campaign is concerned, to target those needs of everyday families that are working month to month and still can't make ends meet. And I think that's a big portion of what the crisis is, and thank you so much for your time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle Little, and I want to set a few things straight right here. The reason I have entered this race was to fight for black and brown communities, to fight for marginalized communities. As a black man myself, an openly homosexual black man, I know that right now we have a bigot in the White House. We have a white supremacist in the White House who's trying to take away all of our human rights. And I've entered this race before any of these other people. So I've been calling for Mikey Sherrill, Governor Mikey Sherrill, because I knew right then those same 92% of black women who voted for Vice President Kamala Harris, she was going to get even more of that coming from our communities. So I want to put pressure on Governor Mikey Sherrill to, one, implement a Black Wall Street right here, right in Plainfield, New Jersey, because that is a city in our district. And number two, I have another policy that's called Trenton Revitalization Without Displacement. That means revitalizing the city, because that is our state capital and all of us need to care about it. Because if you go to other states, if you go to Tennessee, people like to go to Nashville. If you go to Texas, people like to go to Austin. But our capital right here, Trenton, nobody's proud of it, and you just see the systemic racism that's going on in Trenton. So we need to invest in black-owned businesses, invest in affordable health care, build more hospitals in cities like that, increase funding for our school systems in predominantly black areas, and that's what I intend to do once elected to Congress.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
There are several things that I would do upon going to Washington. One, I would change the tax code so that corporations will pay more, so that the tax bracket would be increased to no less than 37%. At the same time, I will change the tax code to make it possible for families earning less than $650,000 to pay anywhere from between 5% and 20%. One of the other things I would do as well is I would change legislation that would increase the Pell Grant from $7,400 to $15,000. But more than that, I will also advocate to make sure that the low income and housing tax credits are sent to New Jersey so we can build more affordable housing. I would also be advocating for a federal tax credit or grant to first-time home buyers so that they can earn a part of the American dream. There are so many things that we can do. We can also make sure that student debt, which is burden weighting down our young people, making it impossible for them to own a home or to go into an apartment. So if we are able to do these things, and we can, we would be able to make life more affordable for the American people. There are so many things we...
You're done.
Good morning, everyone. I am Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson. I am in the state legislature. I have been here for the past 5 terms, 8 years serving New Jersey and working with all of these partners here today on the Black agenda. And I believe the question was about housing. So my career as a social worker started in housing, making sure that people were in vulnerable situations had a place to go. Whether we started off with a temporary rental assistance, helping you find a job, a living wage job to help pay for those bills. Moving forward, I would continue to support and make sure that we fund the trust program, the housing trust program. Also a part of the Black agenda, we're talking about supporting our churches that want to start housing programs. We need to make sure that we pour those dollars in there. I would also continue to fight for not just first-time home buyers, but what if you want a second home or retirement home? I want to fight for you too. We have to make sure that we have a living wage, not just a minimum wage, and I'll continue to fight for that. Housing is essential to everything. If you don't have housing, your health care is poor, and everything else seems to go to the wayside. I want to make sure that we continue to fight for those dollars, changing the bar because you can only make $40,000 right now for certain programs. We can change that, and that's what I'll do when I'm your representative. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have a representative who has been fighting and advocating for us already. She has championed the UBI, Universal Basic Income, where 16 states have already been piloting. And what that means is providing those working families an opportunity and money and funding to bridge the wealth gap. It's already been said, with housing, with access to quality education, access to health care, all these things impact our quality of life. What we can do when you send me to Congress is making sure that those policies are those that are supporting the working families to be able to close that wage gap. When you have a healthy employee, you have a healthy community, you have a healthy state, you have a healthy country. In order to be able to pay for the things that impact your life, whether it's prescriptions, insurance, sending your kids to college, public education from pre-K all the way through 12. These are policies we must continue to champion and advocate for in making sure that the American people can have the pursuit of happiness, can be able to afford their homes that they stay in, be able to afford an education, be able to afford insurance, and policies that are in place when you have advocates and champions in Washington, D.C., have to impact not only for the now, but for the future. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right. Let's start by starting off. The racial wealth gap is real. It starts with the fact that that's really a result of generations of policies that limited access to housing and home ownership and opportunity and capital. So I think we need to make a concerted effort and be intentional and targeted, and dare I say, take affirmative action to address these types of issues. That starts with addressing housing and making sure we are building affordable housing in our community. That starts with making sure that we are doubling down in making jobs in this community, addressing AI, making sure that we have life sciences and AI and clean tech jobs that are being able to, that's the next generation of the industries in our communities. Let's make sure we're doubling down on education and making sure we have strong education policy and strong public education. And let's get rid of those legacy admissions to make it unfair for a lot of us to get into those universities, right? I serve on the board of Rutgers University and understand how education is oftentimes the engine for economic mobility for our people. We need to double down on things like that. My name is Squire Sermance. I am not a politician. I'm a Rutgers-trained biomedical engineer and neuroscientist. I am a job creator and build businesses in this district, and I think we need to have change. And if you want something new, I am your candidate. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jay Vangenker. I'm 28 years old. I'm a former Joe Biden White House official, and I'm running because I want to be able to afford to live in the community and the state that I grew up in. You know, for too long, we've seen politicians that try to maintain the status quo. They profit when our neighbors are detained. They profit when our health care is delayed and denied. And you know, my family is from India. My parents immigrated to this country 32 years ago, and that was only possible because of immigration reform that came from the civil rights movement. And I'm sure that many people in this room, or many of your parents, just like my parents, went through the experience of being in front of a loan officer or a real estate broker who may have judged them because of their accent or their appearance. And that's why I support federal versions of bills like Troy Singleton's Faith in Housing program to make sure that the new housing that's built is meant to serve Black and brown communities, because we need to build more housing to lower the cost of buying a new home, because buying a new home shouldn't be something reserved for someone who is much older or someone who has a ton of wealth. We also need to make sure that we're lowering our healthcare premiums. I know we were talking about that earlier, and that's why I support Medicare for All, because we shouldn't be profiting and lining the corporate profits of healthcare companies. We have to remove the profit incentive from healthcare. And so I'm running to make sure that our politicians are serving communities like ours, not just the wealthy. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sam Wong. I'm an educator and I'm a scientist. And that means that my solutions begin with knowledge, and as a scientist, I build solutions starting with data and helping to understand where we need to go. In the case of affordability, I've worked for 26 years at Princeton University, and every day I see around me the effects of accumulated wealth built on the backs of enslaved people going back hundreds of years. One of the biggest issues in affordability is being able to have a home that you can live in. Affordable housing is absolutely critical, whether provided at the federal level through housing programs or faith-based initiatives to move into unoccupied units. I've been really learning, even just in the last few months of my candidacy. I'm a first-time candidate for office, and I've been learning a lot about how to build affordable housing throughout the district and through federal policies. One of the solutions is going to be to go to Washington and reassert Congress as the primary branch of government, to have it restrain a runaway executive, to have it rein in a judiciary that doesn't represent our interests. And that means a number of things. It means freeing up bottled up legislation over in the Senate where there's a bill that can help build affordable housing. It means preventing Congress from getting into pointless wars that make us pay $20 more per tank of gas, okay? And it means taxing billionaires to start paying for programs, because we need to start applying Congress's power to put the housing, FHA, the VA, and all these agencies to work to help us afford our lives here in the 12th District.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next question. A major storm hits our city, causing widespread power outage, flooding, and displacement. Walk us through what you would do in the first 24 hours as a federal representative to support local response. Again, let me give you the question, and please respond directly to the question. We have your scans. We can read all about your stuff. Respond directly to the question. Question is, walk us through what you would do in the first 24 hours as a federal representative to support local response.
So I am from this area. I served at the National Guard unit right up the road, and I know very well what would happen if there was that type of catastrophe. So first of all, I would, as a congressperson, I would work with immediately, I would call to answer the question, the FEMA, what's left of it. Hopefully by this point in time we will be able to build it back up. But then I would also call all of the local people from the various OEMs, and I would work with them to get help here as quickly as possible. And again, I know the people specifically to call, and so I would reach out to them, and I would be here on site working with them immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, you get on the phone and you call the governor and you make sure that they have exactly what they need. Second, you call a webinar with all the mayors and council members of every single town in your district and you check in to see what they need. 3, communication is vital, so you have a public event, whether it's a teletown hall or some other public event in which communication is shared freely. 4, I get on the phone and I call FEMA directly, now having all the information I need about what we need, and I tell them our demands. I work with the rest of the delegation. Politics is a team sport, delivering for people is a team sport, and I'd work the entire delegation to go a united front to FEMA. If they didn't listen, I would sit on those steps until they did.
As a mayor of a very large town in our district, I could tell you that we have phenomenal people in our town and in the surrounding towns that already know what to do in the event of emergency. So your role as a congressperson is to make sure that you contact those individuals to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to make sure that they get the work done that they need to do, because I know that they have the talent and the skills to do that. After you've made sure that they have everything that they need, then you need to make sure that you connect with the governor and everyone in the state to make sure they have all of the services and money they need to make it work.
Understanding that the question asked about the 24 hours following the event of a major storm, but in the hours leading up to a major storm, I would ensure that various community groups, nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations have access to the 411s, all of the emergency resources, where is the PSNG number to call for major power hours, things of that nature, so that people are not caught blindsided in the event that power goes out. And once the crisis does hit, of course, being on the phone with the governor and FEMA, but beyond that, a leader leads by example, have to actually get out there and show people like what you're made out of. And whether it's pails, whether it's going door to door, ensuring that our elderly neighbors are being accounted for, we have to actually be down and be visible so that we can account for everyone. Thank you so much.
As someone who's responded to both natural and man-made disasters, both here and all over the world, just like in 9/11 when I first responded, the first thing you have to do is to communicate with the people on the ground on what they actually need. The worst thing to have is people from Washington, D.C. sending aid that is not necessary but is already there. Once you know what's needed, you need to reach out to FEMA, to the administration, and to Congress to be able to release the funds and also get local help from around the surrounding areas where it's available to come to the disaster area. Right now, FEMA's under the DHS. We need to free it up and dismantle it so it's not tied to ICE, and that funding is available to be able to respond to natural disasters when it's needed and not tied up in Congress right now, because if a disaster happens, right now we're in trouble.
Yes, so the first thing I would do is obviously I need to go check with my constituents in the area. I need to talk to their elected officials, to mayors, to council members. I need to check with the emergency organizations, emergency responders that are, being on the front lines of this natural disaster. So within my Article 1 responsibilities as a Congress member, I have to conduct oversight, so make sure that everyone is doing their job, right? And at the federal level, I have to fight to make sure that FEMA does give us money, because there's been times where sometimes in the district, I know this is specifically the case of North Plainfield, I don't think they got funding for something that they needed, but we want to make sure that our folks are getting funding when these disasters happen. Thank you.
So the first thing I would do on a federal level is make sure that there's enough money in FEMA to make sure that we get their immediate relief to our communities when they're hit by these natural disasters. On a local level, I would have to work with the governor and mayors like this brother behind me, because the city of Plainfield has some of the worst flooding in the state of New Jersey. So I would definitely be on top of our local officials and make sure that I was also there as a community advocate and activist, just to make sure that my constituents get the relief that they need.
So I have lived through this. I have governed through severe weather emergencies. The first thing I would do is call the governor's office to make sure that the appropriate disaster declaration has been made. Next, I will reach out to every mayor and OEM coordinators across the entire 12th congressional district. Next, I will I'll get on a train and make my way into the district so that I can do a self-assessment. And the fourth thing I would do, after having all of the data, all of the information in front of me, I would reach out to FEMA to make sure that we receive the level of aid and assistance that is needed in the district so as to return things to a level of normalcy. And that's what I would do once I'm in Washington when the disaster occurs. I will make sure I reach out to the appropriate authority at the state level. Thank you.
Because of my lived experience, I would be there before the disaster happens. I'm at the rock. I'm getting the intel. I understand what's happening. I would also know that the federal administration right now has cut significant amount of money that goes into FEMA. So I'm going to start working on that before the disaster happens. Then I'm going to talk with my local mayors. Then I'm going to make sure I can go out into my community and see what the needs are. Then I'm going to tap into my nonprofits that are in the area to make sure that we can come together collectively to support this community. And then we're going to go back and ask for some more money because restoration costs more than just where they were before. So that's what I will continue to do, continue to fight for those FEMA dollars. Thank you.
My military experience has taught me to lead in crisis, strategic in planning, tactical in execution. And yes, that preparation starts ahead of the storm. Working with your state OEM, your county OEM, and your local OEM, which that structure is already in place in preparedness, for disaster preparedness. The lived experience, just this past February, Somerset County was one of over 3,000 counties who put forth over a dozen resolutions bipartisanly, and FEMA was one of those resolutions in making sure this 119th Congress set policies that's going to make sure that those dollars are available in case of disaster. Strategic and planning, tactical and execution, always being prepared.
I think to answer this question, I think you have to first understand how this is going to play out. Communication is going to be critical. I think the first thing you do, you start with making sure you're engaging with the local mayors and local council. You have to start with the people. I understand my role in the federal level is not to be leading on the ground with respect to the mayors, with respect to that specific disaster. We then, once we have a clear understanding of what they need, then you have to make sure we move hell and high water to make sure that they get the resources that they need. That's just not federal dollars. That's activating churches. That's activating nonprofits to make sure that the resources that the community needs is there. If we need to loop in, when we need to loop in the governor, make sure that they have the resources that they need. Look, I've been an executive for years, and one of the critical things that you do is make sure you have some preparedness beforehand. So I think you start there, but you have to start with the ground level and make sure we tap into those mayors at first. Thank you.
So I'm a former White House and Department of Energy official, and I've worked in the past several years on several disaster relief efforts across the country. And I know that the first 24 hours are crucial for determining how the rest of the relief efforts go. The most important thing we can do is getting the lights back on, making sure electricity is restored to our neighborhoods. Many of you remember during Hurricane Sandy, it was black and brown neighborhoods that were some of the last folks to get their electricity back on. There are so many folks with at-home health care whose devices are dependent. We need to expand LIHEAP to make sure that everyone is qualifying for emergency heat relief or air conditioning relief immediately after that storm. because we've seen for too long that communities like ours are left behind in those disaster relief efforts. So we get the electricity back on, and we go to the Speaker of the House, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or whoever it may be, and say, we are not voting for any new budget bills until New Jersey has the disaster relief efforts. By getting the lights back on, making sure the communities have the resources they need, and holding up any kind of nonsense in the House of Representatives, we can fight.
Thank you.
The backbone of emergency response is local officials, also nonprofits, churches. There are men and women here on the stage who know exactly how to do that, okay? So that is absolutely critical. Congressional staff can add more. I spent a year working on House staff and on Senate staff, and I've seen what congressional staff can do. They can play a communications role. Here in the district, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman's staff and my staff, like I hope to learn from them and use that staff to act as a communication center to convey the interests of people who are on the front lines and working on that emergency relief, to convey that to Washington, to make sure that they communicate with one another to communicate needs. Personal congressional staff can play a really important role in addressing the needs of this district, and I would put them to work here in the district as a critical conduit of information back to Washington.
Stay right there. Just stay right there. You're doing well. Stay right there. Perfect. Wonderful. Next question. Black Maternal Health Week takes place nationwide next week, April 14th through 17th. As you may know, black women in New Jersey are dying at disproportionate rates during pregnancy and childbirth, even when controlling for education and income. As a member of Congress, what specific federal policies would you champion to combat structural racism in maternal health care, from Medicaid to workforce investments to hospital accountability and more?
Thank you for this question. As a biomedical researcher, I know exactly what it takes to create the kind of knowledge to help address these critical needs. One of the attacks on knowledge and on research taken by the Trump administration is to eliminate so-called DEI. And what that means is eliminating research that helps communities of color, that helps women, and to understand the causes of these problems and then to address solutions. One of the first things I'm going to do is to use the power of Congress to reform, to implement, bless you. I want 5 extra seconds. To restore research to make sure that these needs are understood and addressed, and to convert them into practical policies to understand what critical steps, what the choke points are for understanding these health problems, and then to make sure that that is expressed through funding, through public health agencies, and ways to translate into practical solutions to reduce maternal health problems and other problems specific to black women.
Okay. Jay, you're up.
You know, this issue is very personal to me because my mom, up until she was 8.5 months pregnant with me, she worked 2 jobs, as a daycare worker and a bank teller. And she worked so much that at the very end of her pregnancy, she had so many complications that it put my life at risk. And it was only because she had a doula during her birthing procedures that she was able to have an advocate so that doctors could listen to her pain, listen to her concerns. And I want to make sure that every mother-to-be has a doula, has those advocates in the birthing room. And we need to make sure that we have those federal investments to make sure there are more birthing centers, to make sure that every community has those local health care plans and prenatal care. Because we can't have health care just be a privilege for the few. Health care has to be a human right for all. So I support federal policies like Medicare for All, investing in black and brown communities to make sure that we have the staff that also have the cultural competency they need to listen to women of color, even if they have the education, to make sure we're eliminating the bias in our health care plan, to make sure everyone, no matter who you are, has a safe birth.
Squire.
So I lead the health equity ministry at this church, First Baptist. I also helped relaunch the maternal and infant health ministry at this church. This is an issue that's important to me, that I'm passionate about. We can and need to do better for our black women. What we're doing, particularly in this ministry, we are making sure we give education on black wife and midwifery and doula programs. These are things that we can take from a community level and scale to the county, scale to the state, scale to the national level. These are the types of resources, these are the types of programs that the federal government should be doubling down on and making sure that that statistic that says black women are 3 times more likely to die in birth to go away. That's the disparity that we need to address, and I would just start here, use the programs that we're already doing here, and scale that to the national level.
Chanel.
As a mother who had complications after delivering her 3rd child, I know firsthand what it means to advocate and champion for your own health disparities, your own health access. Policies at Congress level needs to continue to fund policies and programs so that we do not have to talk about this in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the nation. Why are we discussing whether it's a human right or not? It is not a privilege. It shouldn't be up for debate. Unequivocally, we should be funding programs that give people compassionate and dignified care. And I have done just that here in Somerset County, where we have invested in access to health care for our communities and making sure that they get what they need. And again, firsthand, knowing what it means to be able to champion and advocate for your health care needs, we can continue to do that in Washington, D.C., and making sure that we fund it.
You're done.
I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what I've done. I have researched, we have developed and passed laws to have the New Jersey Maternal Health Institute in the state of New Jersey. It's a $70 million project that is specifically came out of black birthing. I am working to put birthing back in our hands. I'm working and I've passed legislation to get us funding for maternal health, for midwives, for doulas. But take it to the next level. How about we pay them, give them that pay equity at the federal level? How about we have insurance companies also pay and make sure that they're eligible to have those services? We have lactation programs. We want to make sure that they can also participate. Medicaid should be a part of all of this conversation. I'm not talking about what I'm going to do. I'm doing it right now, and I'll continue to fight for black birthing in this state, putting New Jersey first.
So clearly what we need is universal health care. We have to make sure that that mother is able to go to a doctor when she needs to. We have to make sure that the medicines that that mother needs in order to, protect herself, that she's able to go to the pharmacy and get that prescription filled without having to worry about how she will pay for that prescription. We also have to make sure that every single black woman in this country is able to go to a local clinic, such as the Plainfield Health Center, a federally qualified SQHC, which need to be funded. And so we need to provide the level of funding to all of these community health centers so that those black women are able to go and get the care that they need. Thank you.
So this question is very personal to me. I am the older brother of a younger sister who was 26 years old, and she wants to have kids in a few years. And I want to make sure that when she goes to the hospital, she has the reproductive care that she needs. And I don't want my sister bleeding out on the table, all right? So I am a huge champion for women's reproductive rights, and we also have to make sure that black people are treated fairly, because we've been the victims of a healthcare system that has never been fair to us in this country. And we have to make sure that we are seen and we are treated, because there's this notion out there that black people don't feel pain. Trust me, I can tell you, if somebody hits me, I'm hurt. All right? So we need to make sure, we need to hold these doctors accountable as well, who are treating our women disproportionately and unfairly once they go into the hospital and because they need the reproductive care that they need.
Thank you. So I remember when I used to work at the Robert Wood Johnson in Somerville. I remember I stumbled into a statistic when I was in the break room. I went and saw a big poster that talked about how black women are 3 times more likely, have a rate of mortality 3 times higher than white women during pregnancy. And I remember that caught my attention. And something that I've seen we can do policy-wise, we can try and expand, make sure that we have doulas, we have midwives, we have folks that can provide that care to the mother. We have a program that target a young black people so they can be part of the medical staff. We need to expand and diversify the medical staff. And we also need to provide accessibility by universal health care. Thank you.
As a doctor, I witness every day the impacts of defunding our communities and what it does to basically black and underprivileged communities throughout the country, as well as here in New Jersey. Having a maternal mortality rate that's 3 times everyone else is completely unacceptable. What are the root causes? It's housing, access to nutrition, access to prenatal care. Having a universal health care system like Medicare for All would solve much of that. In addition, we need to expand programs and bring basically the clinics back into the communities and the hospitals that have been closing down and shutting down because there's no funding in them, and the doctors and the healthcare workers are leaving. We also need to, there's so much to talk about here. Yes, so we also need to fund midwives, but they need to be properly supervised because we don't need a 2-tier system where they don't have the gold standard.
You're done.
My 4-year-old is sitting back there somewhere in one of these pews, and we had her at home. We did a home birth. We had her at home in a tub. And that was not always the intention of the plan, but going through the corporate health system, the quality of care. And we had health care. It's not always about access and cost. We had health care, but the quality of care that's sometimes afforded and provided to women of color is substandard and subpar. And so beyond access, beyond cost, we need to also ensure that there's cultural sensitivity training, for all doctors and medical professionals. I just left the country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They have clinics, they have clinics in, every village. And so like the accessibility is there, the cultural sensitivity is there because the people, they're born in of and from the same community that they're providing care to. And so I would afford resources to what's called FQHCs, or Federally Qualified Health Centers in Trent. We have one that's called Henry J. Austin, to be able to help support the training and education for black and brown doctors and medical professionals in the healthcare space for women. Thank you.
Well, without personally giving birth on stage, I don't know how to prove to you that this is an important issue to me. As a practicing OBGYN, I actually see what's happening in the world that we're all talking about right now. The maternal health issue and the maternal mortality rate in New Jersey up to a couple of years ago was number 48 out of 50. So this is something that has gotten better, and thanks to Tammy Murphy and some of the legislation that's bringing a maternal fetal opportunities and center to Trenton, our district. We have to also recognize that, and with good cause, people of color have had a very difficult time working with the organized healthcare system. So making available federal dollars to support midwifery, people that are in the areas such as doulas will help. And then finally, there's absolutely racial issues in terms of research and opportunities to folks who have fallen behind. We need to work on things such as not only maternal health, uterine cancer, breast cancer, and the like.
By the time a black woman is giving birth, she's already absorbed a lifetime of sexism and racism, and that shows up in nutrition, that shows up in education, that shows up in housing, that shows up in exposure to pollutants. Our resolution to this problem has to be comprehensive and deep. Yes, we have to pass Medicare for all, but we have to take it a step farther at every step in someone's life. With respect specifically to maternal health, I would lift up and fund the work that Assemblywoman Reynolds-Jackson here has been working on with people like Reverend Boyer in Trenton, birthing centers and midwives and doulas, seeking out community members so that we are helping them in their own spaces, and funding that work as healthcare work, which it is, and not letting health insurance companies dictate what is and what isn't healthcare.
Maternal health care starts with health care. We need to do a much better job of incentivizing those in the healthcare community to come into our communities where they can be of help. In Congress, we have the power of the purse. We can do things like loan forgiveness. We can incentivize those in the nursing profession to come back to their communities through these loan forgiveness or other programs. We need to have universal health care. We're the richest country in the world, and we cannot ensure that our communities have the health care they need. We also are the richest country in the world, and we are not providing the nutrition necessary for all of our community members to be able to be healthy and to be able to give back to their communities once they are. Thank you.
Question. Recent polling shows that 56% of New Jerseyans don't know slavery happened here. In fact, it was so embedded that New Jersey has been called the slave state of the North. This history has led to generations of institutional racism and shows up in wide disparities in wealth, education, housing, incarceration, and health. On Juneteenth, 2025, the New Jersey Reparations Council released a landmark report with targeted policy recommendations. Now, what are your thoughts on reparations, and what reparative policies do you support, if any?
As a scholar, one moves around the country a lot. And really, after settling here in this area 26 years ago, I settled at a university that has benefited from that kind of labor, as I mentioned before, Princeton University. And it's been really an education to me to learn, by living in one place, all the ways that slavery has affected people then and lives with us, and we still live with it now. At my university, there's been a lot of rethinking, right, through Brother Cornel West, my former colleague Cornel West, and also thinking about people who we used to revere, like Woodrow Wilson. And now we think about the contributions that he made, but also resegregating the public service, right? Resegregating the post office. And so for me, it's been a major education to understand that. Reparations involves, as I said before, rebuilding wealth through, I actually was reading that report and I was getting quite a lot out of it, and home ownership, finding ways to build wealth, finding ways to provide health care, finding ways to,
You're done.
Thank you.
I support reparations, and I want to talk today about how we can actually get this bill passed. Right now, we have a Republican Supreme Court that has legalized racial discrimination with ICE raids. It's banned affirmative action. And so our mission in this next Congress is to get a bill passed that can muster this conservative Supreme Court. So we need to be targeted with how we do our reparations. We need to increase funding for HBCUs. We need to increase down payment assistance for victims of redlining. We need to make sure the profits from legalized marijuana are going to Black and brown communities, invested in those communities, and designed to actually address the racial wealth gap. Those who've actually suffered from the sins of this country the past several centuries need to be the ones benefiting from the economic growth from these reforms. If we come up with targeted economic reforms for the industries that have disproportionately harmed Black and brown communities, we can get a reparations bill passed that can survive this right-wing Supreme Court.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
You should all vote for me. Thank you.
That was a good comeback. Good comeback. You scored.
I 100% back reparations. We did it for other communities. We could do it for the Black community, right? Let's start there. I think we also need to be just transparent about how we can do this. I think it needs to come from the economic standpoint. I work in investing in raising capital. Do you know that 3% or less than 3% of venture dollars actually go to Black communities? We're talking about Black women as less than 0.5%. These are things that need to change in our community. If we want to empower us and want us to close that racial wealth gap, in our communities, we need to continue to focus on these areas, because that's where we're going to build economic and generational wealth for our communities, and it's going to be in economic fashion. Now, I think those are the approaches, and that's where we need to spend our time in addressing this issue.
The church is the staple of the Black community. And this is where we partner with the churches in making sure that our people are getting the reparations that we deserve. Yes, other groups have gotten reparations. Why is it taking so long? Or it's beyond the minds of people who are making policy that Black and brown communities don't deserve the same. We pay taxes. We want the best for our families. We want a quality education. We want a quality life. We want housing. We want livable wages. What's so far-fetched? Is it because of the color of our skin? That shouldn't matter. Compassionate and dignified care and policies that support the Black and brown community receiving reparations. I championed and advocated with Somerset County, with the state doing the reparations task force. We don't need another study. We know reparations have not been provided to our community. So I will continue to champion and advocate and support reparations for Black and brown communities.
I am the proud champion for reparations. We have been working on this issue for a number of years. And if you have not, please, the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, Salvation Social Justice, they all have the study that has been completed. We fought for 8 years with Governor Murphy to sign this executive order because we really don't need to go through legislation. As you see, President Trump does executive orders all the time. So let's not act like we don't know what's existing here. But some of the things that I want to fight for is making sure that if I'm incarcerated, we have over a $3 million contract. Why do we have to pay? Why are inmates have to pay to get in contact with their attorneys or legal counsel or family? We shouldn't have to do that. The other one I want to set the bar for is the minimum age, 14 years old. Do you know that there were 69-year-olds that got charged? Why is that? I feel like that is the pipeline that they're trying to create for juveniles to go back to our detention centers, and I'll fight that.
I believe in reparations, but I believe in looking through global lenses. In 1884 to 85 at the Berlin Conference, several nations, European nations, sat at the table and decided how they will slice and dice Africa into 50 different nations. And as a result, we see how Africa has been pillaged of its human and mineral resources so that corporations here in the United States and in Europe were able to benefit from slave labor. And so in these United States, the same way that the Japanese were paid reparations, every person who is a victim of the enslavement of African people ought to be paid reparations, whether it's free tuition, whether it's forgiving the debt of African nations. I am for that. But I don't look at it locally, I look at it globally. I am for reparations.
So I'm not going to tell you what I think about reparations. I'm going to tell you what I know about reparations. And what I know is that Black people are owed reparations, period. There was an enactment called Field Order 15. And what happened? That was given, it said that Black men were going to get granted this land from Georgia to South Carolina. And what happened after that? A white supremacist assassinated President Abraham Lincoln. All right, and that's where the term 40 acres and a mule comes from. If you didn't know, now you know. All right, so now the problem is that we have never come up with a concrete policy of what reparations are. What do we as Black people want from these reparations? Because you'll talk to different Black people from all over the country, and we don't have like nothing set in stone. That's why I constantly want to implement policies like I talked about before, like the Black Wall Street in Plainfield, New Jersey, and like revitalizing our city of Trenton that could put money into Black businesses and build up Black wealth and put a $25,000 home grant in the first-time homeowners.
You're done.
This is an easy question. Yes, reparations all the way, cash payments and checks, anything. So, okay, I got 50 seconds. So the Green Party has been with reparations for like 25 years. This is all news to us. We believe 100%. If you pick up the book 1619, you're gonna learn how every aspect of U.S. infrastructure, medicine, research, all kinds of areas in the country, how all has been impacted by the legacy of slavery and segregation and institutional racism. So if you can't put together a reparations programs off of that for 300 years of Holocaust, I don't know what else is meritorious of that. So we believe in that, yes, and thank you so much.
As I said in my opening statement, I support reparations and it's long overdue. How that's done, the work has already been there. We just have to go back and not try to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to dictate this is what we're supposed to do, but what is supposed to translate is access to education, access to housing, access to small business loans so that we could get businesses started in the communities. And I work with faith leaders and community leaders on how to best do this. In Congress, my job is really to try to get this passed and to grease the wheel to facilitate it. But, we really have to get the stakeholders involved in order to really get this done right and appropriately.
As a black man in America, I'm in full support of reparations. What that looks like in reality is going to look totally different in 1,000 different politicians' minds, and so we have to be self-determinant in affirming the future that we wish to see for future generations. The effects of slavery have been intergenerational, if that's the correct word, and we need to come up with intergenerational solutions. We cannot just provide monetary stipends and payments on like a one-time thing like what was done during COVID. And actually, in fact, back during COVID, and please do not take this the wrong way, but just before I say that, Carter G. Woodson, in the Miseducation of the Negro, has said that the systems that have been confining us have done beyond just shackling us, they shackled our minds. And so like now that we're free, some of our minds are still confined. And so back during COVID, we had the monetary stipends and people were spending their money on new clothes, second cars. We should have been investing in education. So we need to be looking at the policies and the systems that have been confining us and address those first through reparations.
Well, let me start by saying that I support reparations, but I don't think that I need to look at it, many of the people in the room here, and try to convince you of the same thing. I think we're all on the same page as that. My job in Congress is going to be convincing everybody else so that it actually becomes legislation. And the middle roadmap to do that, in most instances, has already been filled out. If you look at the folks who have contributed here today, they've given us the roadmap. We need to provide education. We need to make sure that people have access to education, affordable education. We need to make sure that that's also vocational so that people have an opportunity to earn a good income. We need to provide housing and an opportunity to gain generational wealth. We need to have a universal healthcare system so that people don't drown in the debt of their health cost expenses. We need to provide transportation so people can get to jobs. All of these things have been done before. My job will be to make sure that we convince Congress to put that into law.
As the state director of New Jersey Working Families, I was proud to support the Say the Word campaign, which was the reparations campaign back in 2021, 2022, and it was crucial. It was crucial because it forced white New Jersey to reckon with its past, and that lens should inform how we approach every problem in our society. Yes, I am for reparations, and how to get there is the interesting part of this. We are facing what I think will be a next Reconstruction. The United States already effed up our first Reconstruction period, but we are facing, in the post-Trump era, another opportunity to have a reconstructive period. The AI opportunity, which will generate an incredible amount of wealth for oligarchs if we don't regulate it well, provides an opportunity for all of us to take a piece of that wealth. And we should concentrate dividends, and I mean cash transfers to people of color from the wealth generated by the AI industry.
Right now, America is not aware of a lot of the issues with regard to race, and it is being further decimated by the Trump administration. People don't understand our past. They don't know our past. The African American History Act, which is a bill right now, will serve to educate. We first need to educate and remind people, just as Germany does with respect to the Holocaust. We need to remind people of the horrible, horrible things that happened with slavery. First, we do that, and then we will have a better chance at not only reparations, but fixing really the underlying issues that have stemmed from slavery. They have not gone away. They have been buried, and we must first alert and educate people that these still exist. Thank you.
Okay. Adrian, you're going to start us off. Okay, here's the next question. Across our state and the nation, voters continue to raise concerns about the influence of money in politics, particularly how large corporate PACs and well-funded interest groups can shape policy priorities and decision-making. For many Black and frontline communities, these concerns are tied to lived experiences of policies that have favored corporate or special interests over community needs, democratic accountability, and human rights. Transparency about campaign funding is increasingly viewed as essential to building public trust and ensuring elected officials remain accountable to the people they serve. Question: are you accepting corporate PAC and or AIPAC contributions? Please explain why you may or may not be and how your decision aligns with representing the interests of the communities in this district.
Well, the answer is no. I am not accepting any PACs from corporations, from APAC. I am not accepting donations. My campaign is fueled by grassroots support. I believe that we need to take the money out of politics so that the people's voices are heard and that we don't run a nation as a result of the interests of the big corporations that oftentimes dictate to chief executives such as the Trump administration and others the policies that they want to see put in place. And that is the danger of accepting money from corporations. So that is why I have made an intentional decision to fuel my campaign by grassroots support. And so money needs to be removed from politics and let the voices of the people be heard and determine who goes to Washington.
Verlina.
Thank you for that question. So I have not accepted, actually I've denied corporate PAC money, and it is people-driven. It's driven by the people. And so I have over 800 people that have donated from $5 to $50 on up. And I think that's how we have to also be able to manage. But we need the people to help us. You know, there is a lot of expenses that go into this to get information out, to get on television. We need more people to be involved. And so I thank this church for being here today and live streaming it so that other people can understand the importance. Every dollar helps us as independent candidates. I was never the chosen one. I'm doing this because I am fighting for the people, making sure that your voices are heard. Thank you for that question.
Unequivocally, I will not take corporate PAC or APAC money. No election or campaign should be determined by the money that you raise. It should be by the experience. It should be by proven results of what you have done and what you are going to do. And we do not need to send anyone to Washington for on-the-job training. I am a candidate driven by solutions-based and results. And I will continue to advocate and fight. I don't do this work for myself. I do it for the people, whether they voted for me or not, and I will continue to fight. I stood up and took the oath to defend and uphold the Constitution in uniform and out of uniform, and I will continue to fight because this is for the people, by the people, and I will continue to have the people behind me and be behind the people.
Our democracy is not for sale. Our democracy is not for sale. Our democracy is not for sale. I'll say it one more time. Our democracy is not for sale. We need to get dark money out of politics. We need to repeal Citizens United. We need to make sure that our democracy is not for sale. Our campaign is people powered. We raise money from a lot of small donors, from $5 to and up, because companies should not be deciding who our candidates and who our elected officials are. People should be. I have some time left. I'll repeat again. Our democracy is not for sale.
I do not take a dime of corporate PAC money. I do not take a dime of APAC money. I'm proud to be the youngest candidate on this stage at 28 years old. I've never run for office before. I'm not picked by any party machine or corporate interest group to be the next candidate, because I think that folks in this room, folks in the community, should be picking the candidate based on who can best serve our community's best interests. We're proud to have an average online contribution of $33, because we need everyday people coming and supporting our campaign, not just the wealthiest and the ones with the most resources. We need to be electing our elected officials not based on who's been around the longest or who's waited their turn, but because communities like ours have waited too long for change. And so I hope that everyone on this stage rejects corporate PAC money and rejects APAC money, not just in their own campaign accounts, but also from any super PACs or dark money resources. We need to be accountable to make sure our foreign policy is serving everyday folks and creating peace abroad, not bombing and dropping drones on innocent people. Thank you.
My campaign does not accept corporate PAC money, nor will it accept any money from APAC or foreign interests. In order to reduce the impact of money on politics, we need a practical plan in Congress for addressing it. Here are 3 ways to do it. The first is on your taxes and mine, which I hope you will file soon. There's a $3 presidential campaign checkbox. You may have noticed that presidential campaigns of major parties are now declining that money. That money can be dedicated to local races, and what that means is it takes away the influence of corporate interests. Another practical way that we can reduce the influence of money on politics is to make congressional districts smaller. It is very hard to serve 770,000 people. It's important, essential work, but if we had more representatives, it would tilt us towards constituent service and away from raising money. The third way is to reform the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a blocker for many reforms that are absolutely necessary, and if we were to increase the size of the Supreme Court, we have a clear pathway to repealing Citizens United and other necessary changes.
Accepting corporate PAC or APAC money was never even a consideration for my campaign, and you see why the rules are in place, because I have spent so much time calling people to talk to them not only about their issues, but also to raise money. And it's that opportunity where I get to hear about all the issues and all the needs of the constituents. So accepting corporate PAC money makes you lazy. This is no place for lazy people. We need to be out there knocking on doors and getting the signatures on our petitions, because the process forces us to do the right thing and communicate with our constituents. I will not accept corporate PAC money. Thank you.
So I ran once before at NJ7 in one of the top swing districts in the entire country. And it was a most expensive House race in New Jersey history. And when I went to Washington, the DCCC sat me down, because I had refused to take corporate PAC money. And they said, you know, Sue, this is a lot easier if you take corporate PAC money. And I was like, I don't want to take corporate PAC money because I don't want to be a shrill of any corporation. And I'm willing to die on that hill. So I didn't take it then, and I won't take it now. When it comes to APAC, I am the only candidate in this race who APAC has endorsed against. I have not taken APAC money. They endorsed Tom Kean Jr. last time I ran. So I have been vociferous and independent and pro-democracy at every step of the way, even when under pressure by the Democratic Party, and I sure as heck am not going to change that now.
So I too am not taking any corporate PAC money. I've made that statement many times before. We all have to understand exactly how we got to this point, and that is with the Citizens United Supreme Court decision that has opened up the walls to all of this dark money that's gone into elections. One of the first things that we need to do is to make sure that we at least try to turn Congress this year to a Democratic Congress, and then ultimately in 28 to a Democratic presidency. We need to increase the number of people on the Supreme Court so that we could overturn this terrible decision that has resulted in corporations deciding who our leaders are, as opposed to the people who should be making that decision themselves.
I have not, and am committed to not taking corporate money. Of course, you can, whether it's Anthropic through the AI or APAC, none of the sort, and I would not do that moving forward if I had the privilege of serving, our community here within the 12th Congressional District. And for me, in fact, whether it will be to my judgment or not, I focus less on the economic infrastructure of our campaign and more so on the human infrastructure, building up, our network of volunteers. We have hundreds of people, who are believing in us all across the world, and people are running for the presidency, and they're emerging without these large donor backings, and they just have the support and the conviction and the aspirations of the people with them. And that's the type of campaign that I've been running. And I got into this race, with the understanding that, I'm probably not even the #1 pick for any of these corporations. However, if they were to come to me, I would say no, because I'm standing on principle, I'm standing on my values, and the aspirations and hopes of the people here in the district. Thank you so much.
I have not and I will not take any corporate PAC money or APAC money or any APAC-related money in this campaign or any campaign. And unfortunately, our democracy should not be for sale, but it is. And until we overturn Citizens United, money will always be a factor. And it shouldn't be. But that's what we have to work to fix. And right now, whether we like it or not, there is dark money in politics. And dark money is going to jump into this campaign and this race like it's jumping into races all over New Jersey and all over the country. And so we need to work to fight that. I have been labeled as the anti-APAC candidate because they know that I will stand up to it. And this is what I ask everyone else to, is to commit to working against this dark money so that we can get money out of politics. But until then, we need to raise as much as we can so we could fight it.
So I don't take any PAC money. I refuse to take any PAC money. Our political system is overwhelmed by corporate money, billionaire money that buys our elections, that makes sure that corporations are getting kickbacks, low tax rates. It's a whole system, and it funds both parties. That's why we have a commitment as Greens not to take any corporate money. And personally, any money that I've taken is because people have seen me putting money together so seniors can pay rent. People have seen us carpooling so we can get folks, veterans, people that can't afford to eat, be able to get them to the food bank, because folks have seen us organizing and have seen what we do in the community and walk in the streets, and that's how folks have chosen to fund us. Not because a corporation wants a kickback from me, but because people have seen the work we put in the streets. Thank you.
So you guys could look at my FEC reports and look at my fundraising totals, and y'all can tell I don't accept any corporate PAC money. All right. What the pastor said before, that touched me, because he said, "Don't let this campaign be inspired by money." And if you look at politics on both sides of the aisle, they value the candidates by how much money they raise. But I can tell you one thing, I don't have money, but what I have is truth. And we're not about to lie in this church. None of these candidates behind me say that they've been working harder at this race than me. okay? Because I've been at the protests last year. I was at the No Kings rallies last year when Bonnie Watson Coleman was still in the race, okay? I threw my own ice out protest, and unfortunately I got iced out because it snowed that day on the ice out protest, okay? I've been traveling all across this district while running 2 fitness studios, while being an adjunct college professor at King University. So I'm the hardest working person in this race, and I ask that all of you support me.
All right, thank you so much. So we're going to have one last question. I just want to announce the campaign. So if you want to get set up now for the back, please do so at this time. We're going to excuse Pastor Glover and have Pastor Boyer do our last and final question for you all.
Can we give Dr. Glover? I'm telling you, she was the right one. Let's give her a big hand. She certainly kept us all in check. So just before I ask this last question, just because this issue is important to me and my wife, and I think one of the most pressing issues, none of you will probably be asked this question in any of the other forums. That's why we have this forum. But on this piece of Black maternal health, outcomes have improved in New Jersey for every other racial group except Black women. That's right. I want y'all to make sure you know that. 2, nationally, Black women die 3 times more. In New Jersey, they die 7 times more. So I just want to make sure y'all know that. Okay? Here's the last question. We're going to go back to the original order, if that's all right, just because I'm not smart enough to keep track of. And you get 2 whole minutes, Lord have mercy, to answer this question. Why should Congressional District 12 residents vote for you to be their representative in Congress?
I'm Matt Adams, and I am the 12th. I alluded earlier to my time in the Army National Guard right over on Hamilton Street, and also in ROTC up at Rutgers. I learned how to be a soldier here in the 12th District, here in Somerset County, just miles from here. It is my military background of 30 years, including time in the National Guard and also in the Army Reserve. I served 3 years of active duty in the National Guard after Rutgers, and after 9/11, I did 2 more years. I was mobilized to Fort Dix. I am an Army lawyer. I am a JAG. I understand what is happening to America right now, how the executive branch has trespassed, has taken the authority belonging to the legislative branch away, and Congress has allowed that to happen. As a congressperson, my first order of business is taking back that authority, and the fact that that authority has gone over to the executive branch is the cause of most of our problems right now. The tariffs have impacted manufacturing. Everything you see overseas in Iran, that's costing us at the gas tank, right? All because we have allowed Donald Trump the authority to do these awful, awful things, and he needs to be stopped. And as a JAG, as an Army lawyer, I understand what's happening in Iran, what's going on, what's wrong, and we all see the impacts of that. I've been in the 12th District my whole life, 60 years. I've been educated here. I think this district, I raised my children here, my 3 children, one of whom is severely disabled. I'm on the ARC board of Somerset County. I feel and I love this district and its people, and I am best suited to represent you in Congress. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Altman, and I have spent my entire career, over 12 years of it, standing up to powerful people. Chris Christie threw a microphone at me when I was fighting for Camden's public schools. George Norcross, an insurance broker from South Jersey and a Democrat, had me hauled out of a hearing and did all sorts of court proceedings when I was living in Camden and fighting with people there to save their public schools and to save their waterfront, which was being gobbled up by corporations. When I ran last time, Elon Musk himself spent $1 million against me, calling me a radical. Over and over again, I have stood up for everyday people, and I have stood against powerful people, and I have the scars to prove it. When I get to Congress, we are facing one of the most vulnerable moments in American history. Somehow, the coalition that took us from FDR to Obama has crumbled, not once, but twice under Trump. We have to rebuild our party. We have to rebuild our government, and we have to rebuild our country. We are walking into one of the most vulnerable moments, but we have an opportunity. And the people in the 12th know how to work. We know how to organize. We know how to get things done. There's an incredible democracy spring happening here in New Jersey. This primary is evidence of it. New Jersey, against all odds, stopped the bleed and elected Mikey Sherrill. And whether she was your first choice or not, we rallied and we elected her demonstrably. We showed the country that there's a bottom to this mess. And our New Jersey delegation, with the Congresswoman leading, needs progressive champions to take that energy to Congress and to rebuild our country so that it is beneficial to everyone. And power does not give up politely, so that will not be an easy fight, but I've done it, and I've committed to it, and I will do it when I'm in Washington. Thank you all.
My name's Brad Cohen. I have spent 30 years now in maternal fetal health. So if you ask about maternal fetal health, I have a first row view to exactly what you're talking about. And those issues are real and we need to address them, and who better can do that than someone who's actually dealt with it every day. Also on a board of education in East Brunswick for 6.5 years, so I have a good idea and a good understanding of the issues and discrepancies and disparities in education. And as mayor now in my 10th year, helped redevelop a Route 18 corridor, bringing business back to the township so that it could provide the type of support and affordable housing. So it's great to talk about it. It's great to say that I've legislated, I've done it. And we need somebody in Congress right now because we have 2 years. In this year, we need to turn the House and make sure that we win control of the Congress, which my third graders that come up to the town hall already know should be a co-equal branch of government. We need to make sure that we get that done so we could elect somebody in 2028 that represents the Democratic Party and get rid of Trump, who has destroyed the economy, is making life difficult for everybody here, put in a universal health care plan, do the things that actually make the biggest difference for the folks of us that are living life every day and finding life more and more unaffordable. And we need to bring back democracy, something that the government and Trump himself is stamping on every day, whether it's through ICE or women's rights or voting rights, health care. All of these rights are being taken away. Your parents and grandparents stood on picket lines to make sure that we have those rights. We cannot be the last chain in a great democracy.
Thank you to all the partners who have been instrumental in putting this together. I appreciate the opportunity, to come before you and make my case. Again, my name is Elijah Dixon. I'm a father, community organizer, and community development professional at one of the nation's largest community development financial institutions. I'm running, just so you are aware of this, because our future, our collective future, should not feel this fragile, not just within the Black and brown community, which has been disproportionately impacted, but like future of humanity. And it did not start with Trump. And I'm tired of knocking on these doors, canvassing and fake smiling in front of ring cameras, trying to make people feel more at ease about this. Like, people in my community have not felt the effects of democracy for generations. It did not start with Trump. People have been not able to afford their mortgage payments, been drowning in credit card debt, been not able to afford trade school or college. This is not, these are not new problems, and so we cannot just have Trump be the boogeyman. And I'm not going to, and if you would like me to sit up here or be anywhere in DC and act as though I'm just going to be producing strongly worded letters, I'm not your guy. But when your PSC&G bill comes back doubled, I'll be marching with you over to PSC&G. I'll be marching with you, writing contacting the Federal Energy Regulation Commission, the FERC, that is responsible for these utility companies, helping to hold them accountable. We need more than just policy. There's 435 representatives within the House. One politician cannot solve these structural inequities, but what we can do is use our investigatory powers to help shed light onto the problems that we have been facing as a community for generations. Again, I'm deeply appreciative, and you can learn more about me. Well, you know what, that's on the postcard, so scratch that. But I would appreciate if you all just take a deeper look at beyond what people are saying and beyond track record, and look at what they're doing and what they're not saying and where they're not saying it at. And I appreciate you. Thanks.
My name is Adam Hamiley. I grew up to a working class immigrant family in this district. I went to public schools. In order to pay for my college and education, I joined the National Guard like many black and brown folk do in order to get by. And after getting a scholarship, I came back and worked with people every single day. I work with them on the worst day of their lives, and I treat everyone equally no matter who they are. I've volunteered my time all over the world to treat people in need. I've been to Haiti, to Sudan, to the Middle East. I was in Gaza in the last couple years. And nothing that I could do can make me fully comprehend and understand what it's like to grow as a black person in America. But as a Muslim man, I could tell you I understand what discrimination is. I understand what racism is. I understand what it's like to have your patriotism put to question. I understand what it's like to have your very humanity politicized. And what I do understand is that God created every single one of us as an equal person, with dignity and with human rights and civil rights. And no system, no organization, no country could take that away from us. And when I go to Congress, that's what I'm going to be fighting for. When I was in Gaza 2 years ago, I was trapped with my entire team because we weren't allowed to leave. Finally, they only allowed the American citizens to leave, but I refused. I wanted to stay until every single one of us could leave together. When I go to Congress, I will make sure I don't leave anyone behind. That's not who I am, that's not what my faith teaches me, and that's not what our country should stand for. Thank you very much.
Friends, once again, my name is Andres Ginette. I'm with the Greens. I came to this work really working with the community, working with seniors that couldn't really afford the rents at my apartment complex, trying to organize and unionize the tenants in my complex. I've worked, help expand the rapid response network that we have here in Central Jersey, and really working with the community day and night, trying to make sure that folks are safe, that people have money to survive the next month. And in working through those frustrations and these organizations, I found that what I could do, it was only so much. You know, you can do some things here and there, but there's nothing that can change until it changes structurally. And that's why you need someone that's gonna be there for you and that's gonna understand what it's like to work a minimum wage job, work 2-3 jobs, and still not be able to make it at the end of the month. You know, not having any type of security. You don't know if you're gonna have health care. You don't know, overburdened by medical and student debt. I know many of your nephews and nieces and children are going through all of that. And folks don't know what's gonna be next because of the oil prices, because of the sunken minimum wage that has been like that for years. But I wanna give you my solution. I wanna give you my program. But there's a way we can achieve it, that I've done it already through locally. You can organize. How can you get past the establishment? You need to organize, politicize, and mobilize the base. If you do that, you can get past any political establishment. If you stand for majoritarian proposals, if you fight for the people have your back. And those people in Washington are gonna get scared for their seat. That's what I can offer this report.
So, so I got in this race to fight. I knew that once Donald Trump got elected, that I was going to see all of our human rights be taken away. So I actually entered, where's Darrell? Is Darrell here? Because I actually emailed him. He's Bonnie Watson Coleman's scheduler, and let him know that I wanted to enter this race as a political candidate, because I knew I had to fight the fascism that was taking place in the White House. I am the most relatable person to our core Democratic bases in this race right now. I'm a black man. We know that 90% of black voters have voted Democrat since the 1960s. I'm an openly homosexual man. LGBTQ voters are prime Democratic voters, okay? I know the harm that these MAGA Republicans cause to our communities. I'm the only candidate up here whose marriage is constantly attacked, and my health care can be taken away by the federal government. Okay? I'm the only one who is getting DMs right now saying that I'm an abomination because of my sexuality. I am relatable to our seniors because I'm the proud grandson of two 91-year-old grandparents. I am relatable to college students because I teach them 3 days a week at King University. I am the product of a college graduate who, when my husband and I went to buy our first home, I owed $75,000 in student loan debt. And they told me that they didn't even want me to be on the mortgage at first. So I know the burden that student loan debt plays on our young people. And I want our young people to be able to graduate college, buy a home, buy a car, get the things that they actually need. So, again, I'm Kyle Little. I was the first candidate to enter this race, and I do not take that lightly because I have been working and I have been grinding way before any of these other people saw the opportunity. So I am fighting for you, New Jersey, and this is one of the most diverse districts in the country, and I hope that you elect the most diverse candidate.
So I am running to be a clear and consistent voice for the people of this district. I grew up very poor on the island of Barbados. I went to school with no lunch. I went to bed with 2 crackers and a cup of tea as my breakfast. Not my breakfast, as my dinner. And so I understand the struggles of the people in this district. I was teased as a kid because of a severe stutter, where I was teased into silence and felt like I didn't have a voice. And so when I run this campaign with the slogan, your voice, our voice, it is more than just a slogan. It is my lived experience. And so I want to go to Washington in order to make sure that we bring back low-income housing tax credit so that we can address the housing crisis that exists in this district and in this state. I want to go to Washington to provide tax relief so that the SALT deduction is permanent, allowing for people to keep more money in their pockets. I want to go to Washington to fight for more funding for education and for resources to students who are burdened and weighted down with student debt so that they can have money to afford that apartment, to afford to aspire towards purchasing a home by way of tax credits that I would be advocating for from the federal government so they can have assistance with down payment. I am running for this seat because there is such a significant need when it comes to immigration reform, and I would be advocating for comprehensive immigration reform. I must tell you, I am in this because of my lived experience, my executive experience, and when I go to Washington, we all go to Washington. I pledge that to you. Thank you.
I think it's afternoon time. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Assemblywoman Verlena Reynolds Jackson, and I'm running for Congress because I want to continue the service that I'm doing right now at the state level on the federal level. You see, my mom was a civil service clerk typist. My father is a Vietnam War veteran, and he worked for the Department of Labor. His whole goal was to make sure that every veteran had a home and a job. And that became our family mantra. So as you see with my raspy voice, I can't sing. They put me on the doors of the church to be in the usher. And so that's what I did. My whole life is about service. When I got into this space, I was trying to help my nephews navigate special education. And if I'm the social worker, if I'm the one that knows who to call, what letters to write, what meetings to show up, and I have problems, how does mom, dad, or a grandparent navigate that space too? And I said, you know what? My local official, I'm going to say it nice because we in the church, was just dismissive. And I said, wait a minute. He can't represent my community if he won't even listen to me or anybody else that knocked on his door or made phone calls. So I decided to run. But in the legislature, I've been fighting against the Trump administration. Right now, we are fighting for the New Jersey Voter Empowerment Act. We call it the John Lewis Bill, to fight against the Trump administration who's trying to erase black history, erase us from the libraries, erase us from the rolls. I'm fighting for this now. This is my 4th year. I'm talking about perseverance and determination not to give up, fighting for what I know is right. And so I ask you, when you leave here, don't just come to this forum to hear us, but take action. That same passion I have right now is the same passion that I'm going to take to Congress to make sure we fight for maternal health rights, to make sure that we fight for our voting rights, to make sure that we get rid of medical debt, go after corporate greed, and let's not leave out environmental justice. Keep that out of our communities too. I am Verlina Reynolds Jackson, and I thank you for this opportunity today.
Good afternoon. As you look across the landscape of District 12, we have 14 candidates. You got to look whether you have a candidate that is performative or performing. I am a political leader, not a politician, who has been performing and showing up and speaking out for this community beyond the borders of Somerset County and Franklin Township, my home. Welcome all to Somerset County. But with all of that being said, I have been at the forefront leading Somerset County on access to health care, working with Zufall, where you can have dental, vision, medical, prescription, whether you have insurance or not. Your immigration status doesn't matter. Where you live doesn't matter, but you get the help that you need. Spent $10 million of taxpayer dollars in making sure that we're investing in quality education for our students and our residents. That direct investment afforded us to be able to have the first workforce center in the state of New Jersey with RVCC. Investments to provide 1,000 more students to be able to attend and compete for jobs here in Somerset County and beyond. I have been doing the work. I have been trained under our very own Bonnie Watson Coleman for over 5 years. I serve the people that come to me for help. I don't ask whether they're Democrat or Republican. I ask, how can I help you? I serve, not because I have a title, but I have the title because I serve. And I continue to fight for Washington, to fight in Washington for you, continue to fight for the people who don't have a voice, continue to fight for housing, health care, education, those who are downtrodden by the system with immigration. I am the leader for all people at all times. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming here, and thank you for hosting this amazing forum. We've heard a lot of great ideas today, but the question really is, what are we going to do differently? I think we're in a historic moment in this country. I think we're at a crossroads where we have to make a decision whether we're going to continue with the status quo that is limiting jobs and limiting people and make sure there's legislation to only the chosen few, or we're going to choose a new path that's rooted in fresh ideas and leadership that's going to challenge the status quo. Fannie Lou Hamer said that, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Dr. King charged us to make justice a reality. I feel like these are the ideals that govern this moment. I'm not a politician. I'm a Rutgers-trained neuroscientist. I run a biotech firm that's created jobs in this district. I get called down to Capitol Hill to testify on the Hill and give congressional level briefings. I get called down to advise on legislation that impacts our community. I was told that I was being impatient for running for this. But the reality is, impatience for justice has always been the engine for change in this country. You see how and you know how you catch momentum, you start seeing roadblocks being in front of you. I had to sue Middlesex County last week to ensure that my ballot change, Democrats for Change, showed up on the ballot. I've never been called the N-word more in my life than during this campaign. These are the things that we're facing. These are the things that we're fighting against. If you want someone to fight for change that's going to bring new, fresh ideas, that's going to challenge the status quo, that's going to fight for lower cost, Squire Servants, I'm your candidate. Thank you.
You had some fans.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jay Vangenker. I'm 28 years old. I'm a former White House and Department of Energy official under President Joe Biden. And I'm running because every day there's some new notification on our phones. Every day there's some new headline that's constantly meant to keep us in a state of panic and stress. And what the special interests want, the special interests of corporate greed and bigotry, is they want communities like ours to give up on the political process. And you hear too many people in the Democratic Party who say, well, if we just keep going with the same people who've been around, if we just bring some more Democrats into power, that things can go back to normal. But let me tell you, everyone, my generation has never experienced normalcy in our politics. You know, my generation, we grew up in the aftermath of 9/11. I was raised in a recession. I graduated school in a pandemic. And now too many people can't even afford to live in the communities we grew up in. As we navigate a job market that's ravaged by AI, our housing is unaffordable, our utility bills are skyrocketing. And so my ask of you today is that when you pick a candidate in this race, you pick someone who's ready to stand up for you in Washington on day one. I'm proud to be someone on this stage who's worked in the federal government, who's worked on developing federal policy in DC. I won't need to know where the hallways work or how things work in DC because I've done it before. I've worked on the largest clean energy investment in US history, bringing home millions of dollars to communities like ours here in New Jersey because the benefits that we see in Washington need to benefit communities like ours. I hope you all vote for a candidate, not just because they've waited their turn, or they've been around the longest, or they've run before. I hope you vote for a candidate that feels that sense of urgency. Because people tell me, Jay, you're the youngest candidate, you're a young man in a hurry, but I'm feeling that fierce urgency, as Dr. King said, because we need someone to stand up for our communities, and I'm ready to be that champion. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Dr. Sam Wong. I am a father, I'm a husband, and our family belongs to 3 dogs. I am also a scientist, and what scientists do is we take data and we take facts and we build things to solve problems. I would like to take my expertise and put it in your service to solve problems for us in Washington. The 12th district is diverse, and I want to serve everyone. In my career, I've developed tools to work on autism. My family immigrated to the United States. We grew up with autism in the family. My sister was not diagnosed to a late age. In my career, I've developed tools to diagnose autism so that moms and parents at home can get the care they need at an earlier age. That was a solution that I used my science to build. I used AI to do that. One of my principal mentors is one of the initiators of AI. AI is powerful technology that can be put in your service, and I want to do that. But it needs to be harnessed in a responsible manner to protect our privacy and to protect your lives. I used my science to protect democracy as well. One of the reasons we have so many good candidates this year is that I was a witness in the case that did away with the county line and put the decision in the hands of voters, voters like you. And the end of the county line has led to a wide range of districts and puts the power of democracy in your hands. I've worked to fight gerrymandering nationwide. I've used my scholarship at Princeton University and also off campus to fight gerrymandering nationwide. I know the law because I've worked in Congress, I've worked on House staff, I've worked on Senate legislative staff. I've used that expertise there, and I'm going to use that in combination with my work on democracy to bring about key reforms, like a new Voting Rights Act, like putting Congress back in charge again. I'm Sam Wong, and I'm a scientist to save our democracy. Please support me. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, there you have it. Will all the candidates please stand? Now's your time to give it up for your candidate. If you have one, give it up for every single one of them. Thank you. Thank you all for coming and participating. And in all seriousness, as I was sitting through this whole thing, one, thank you for respecting the time. We had to get through a lot of candidates. and you all were fantastic. And what struck me was how difficult it is to put yourself out there for the service of the people. And so I just want to say thank you to every single one of you, because I do see it's a lot to put yourself out there. So can we give it up to all of them one more time? Can we give it up for the Salvation and Social Justice team, the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, New Jersey Black Empowerment, the New Brunswick and Somerset NAACP, NJ BIC. Can we give it up to First Baptist, Lincoln Gardens for hosting us on today? We thank you. Now listen, we in church. And I see the pastor is back. So if the pastor would just come and give us a proper benediction. Can we give it up for the Reverend Dr. Dante Quick one more time as he comes and properly dismisses us?
Would you join me in celebrating Pastor Boyer, his vision, his salvation and social justice? Thank you to all the candidates. As we prepared to leave today, I walked up and I saw the water. And I'm thinking about how many people in this country don't have clean water in the United States of America. I'm thinking that this race is more than just about us. We need to continue to send the nation a message. Our children are boarding ships to go east for an illegal war. And in my mind, not enough of our delegates are raising enough voice to say, this is illegal and we need to stop it. They're more upset about losing their Delta privileges than representing us. Amen. My prayer as we leave is that the men and women here have enough conscience to either fight or get out of the way. We do not have the time to lose this district because of egos. So I'm hoping they listen to each other today and start to coalesce to support one or two so that we do not lose this district because we're divided. Let's pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God who is big enough to be called Jesus, Allah, Buddha, or no God at all. But we serve the ark of a moral universe. So invoke that moral universe now on us in this moment so that the hungry will be fed, the lost will be found, the thirsty will be given water. God, we seek you right now. There is so much pain, but you are a doctor. You are a lawyer. You are a mender. Come on behalf of those who are voiceless, that we may find sustenance. Lord, we seek you for an immoral right house, unconscious that has been lost in this nation. Provide in this race a new moral center that will challenge corruption, that will not be based on contribution, but will have vision for the people. And we will give you glory and honor. Amen. Thank you for coming to First Baptist. Thank you for coming to First Baptist.